A vacina, uma vez certificada pela Anvisa, vai ser extensiva a todos que queiram tomá-la. Eu não vou tomar. Alguns falam que estou dando um péssimo exemplo. Ô, imbecil! O idiota que está dizendo que eu dou um péssimo exemplo, eu já tive o vírus. Eu já tenho anticorpos. Para que tomar vacina de novo? E outra coisa que tem que ficar bem claro aqui, doutora Raíza, lá na Pfizer, está bem claro lá no contrato, nós não nos responsabilizamos por qualquer efeito colateral. Se você virar virar um jacaré, é problema de você, pô. Não vou falar outro bicho que eu vou aqui, falar besteira aqui, né? Se você virar super-homem, se nascer barba em alguma mulher aí, ou algum homem começar a falar fino, eles não tem nada a ver com isso. O que é pior, mexer no sistema imunológico das pessoas. Como é que você pode obrigar alguém a tomar uma vacina que não se completou a terceira fase, ainda está experimental?
Senhoras e senhores, está encerrado.
I believe that always there are some people that are skeptic about vaccines, but I have to say they are wrong, because vaccines has been proven over the century that they are the best medical intervention ever discovered. I can imagine that in this case, because the products, the vaccines or the medicines are developed very fast, but even worse, because have been severely politicized, particularly in the US, that makes people confused, and they don't know who to believe and what to believe, because the discussion was happening on political rather than on scientific terms. What I tell them it is that we didn't cut any corners, that we tested this vaccine with the exact same way that we are testing any vaccine that is circulating out there. That this vaccine actually was tested even because of the scrutiny, with even higher standards in terms of how we do things.
That was the president of Brazil saying that there's a possibility if you take the vaccine, you're going to turn into a crocodile. He also said that women might grow beards, the possibility of superhuman powers, and men talking with effeminate voices. And he said that he has already had COVID-19, therefore he has antibodies and doesn't need a vaccine, which is wrong. There are many cases, including Nick Saban, the head football coach at the University of Alabama, that has indeed had the COVID virus twice. This is the American Doofus Show. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. And of course, don't be a doofus. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. That was our opening story. Our next story is from Louisville, Kentucky. I've been talking a lot about Louisville, Kentucky throughout this series. It's played an integral part in 2020. And the people of Louisville are still protesting. Protesting is crucial to the big picture in drawing attention to social injustice. This clip comes from Maxwell Mitchell. Maxwell is an incredible live streamer in Louisville, and I've made no secret that I want to get Maxwell involved with EAR. But until that time, we now go to Maxwell Mitchell, live stream from earlier this afternoon in Louisville, Kentucky, where there's a march happening. Just a small clip there from Maxwell Mitchell, Louisville, Kentucky. That march was in memory of Chris Smith. Chris Smith was murdered in his vehicle, as we reported here on the program, and that march was in his memory. To see the video in its entirety, go to Maxwell Mitchell's Facebook page. To start this next story, I want to show you a headline from a Fox News website. That story reads, President Trump on Saturday promised a wild protest in Washington, D.C. on January 6th as he continued to deny that he lost the election. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election, he tweeted. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild. I imagine that is the dog whistle that some of us have been waiting for, the call to arms, if you will. January 6th, this is the day Congress will meet to accept the presidential election results. President-elect Joe Biden won the election. The presidential electors cast their votes last week in the Electoral College. But Trump and his campaign have disputed the results and launched numerous legal challenges. Roughly 46 lawsuits by the Trump campaign and allies to upend the election results over the past 6 weeks have been tossed out by state and federal judges. On Saturday, Trump linked to a report by Peter Navarro that claims without evidence that the amount of election fraud was sufficient to swing the election. It was not. Meanwhile, Trump has been critical of those in his party who have accepted Biden's victory. And he tweeted, Republican senators have to get tougher or you won't have a Republican Party anymore. We won the presidential election by a lot. Fight for it. Don't let them take it away. Trump charged on Twitter. What is actually true is the Republican Party needs to distance themselves as far and as rapidly as possible from Donald Trump in order to save the Republican Party. Well, that's kind of crazy. Could it get any crazier? Yes. Yes, it could. We're dealing with Donald Trump. I've never done this before, but let's go to CNN.
Learning of a heated Oval Office meeting Friday where Trump allies floated ideas of ways to overturn the election. I want to go straight to CNN's Jeremy Diamond. Jeremy, just when we thought we couldn't hear anything crazier, what are we learning about this meeting?
Well, it's very clear that as President Trump continues to refuse to accept that he lost this presidential election to President-elect Joe Biden, the president is also still consulting aides and allies for more ways that he could possibly move to continue to contest this election or at least undermine the legitimacy of Joe Biden's election as the 46th president of the United States. We're told that on Friday, the president met with Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor, who was pardoned by the president despite having pled guilty to counts of lying to the FBI. And his attorney, Sidney Powell, who has been trafficking these deranged conspiracy theories about the 2020 election that have been roundly and thoroughly debunked. The president, nonetheless, during this meeting, apparently was talking about potentially naming Sidney Powell as a special counsel within the government to investigate voter fraud in the 2020 election, despite a total lack of evidence of any widespread voter fraud in this election. And he also discussed apparently this idea that Michael Flynn has brought up recently about using martial law to rerun the 2020 presidential election. I want you to listen to this crackpot idea brought up by Michael Flynn recently on another network, and then we'll talk about it.
He could order within the swing states, if he wanted to, he could take military capabilities and he could place them in those states and basically rerun an election in each of those states. I mean, it's not unprecedented. I mean, these people out there talking about martial law, it's like it's something that we've never done. Martial law has been instituted 64 times.
Now, it is not clear at all that that idea is being seriously considered, but it did come up in this meeting in the Oval Office. We should also note that the military has made very clear that they would never be involved in any efforts as it relates to overturning the results of the election or determining who the next president will be. That is a job for the voters and for the electors who have already chosen Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. And we should also point out that many of these ideas being floated by Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn, while they were enticing to the president, they apparently drew a significant backlash from some of the president's advisors, including the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, and the White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows. In fact, sources are telling us that the meeting devolved into a screaming match at times, one source calling it, quote, ugly, as Flynn and Powell accused the president's advisors of not pushing hard enough to overturn the results of the 2020 election. What is clear, Bianna, is that this effort is continuing. And a source told me earlier this week that the president has even floated with some advisors staying at the White House past Inauguration Day before being talked down from that ledge. But it is clear that the president is engaging with some of these very dangerous and concerning ideas. The question is how far he will continue to take it. We will have to wait and see on that one.
There you have it. And you remember when William Barr resigned right after the Electoral College results came in, I told you he was jumping ship because the next plan was probably going to be illegal and he wanted to have absolutely nothing to do with it. Well, now we know a little bit anyway of what's going on in the Oval Office with the current president. I want to end by reading one final quote. This is from a Trump supporter. Quote, "I'm not prepared to die for this country, but I would sure kill somebody if they were going to try to take away the freedom of my God." His God is Donald Trump. We are in a very dangerous time, whether we want to admit it or not. We have the president of the United States calling for a wild time, January 6th. Again, we've talked about dog whistles. We know that in the debate, the president told the Proud Boys to stand back, but stand by. I imagine this was their call to no longer stand by come January 6th. Only time will tell, but we must take it seriously. We must be aware. And in my opinion, we must be prepared. And I hope I've given you something to think about. It's the American Doofus Show. I'll be back live tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Sunday Night Live, the weekly wrap. I hope you'll join me. Until then, it's the American Doofus Show. I'm Barry Welsh. Don't be a doofus.